Hello everybody and welcome back to the Royal Blue Podcast. I'm Phil Kirkbride and today joined by Dave Prentice, Sam Carroll and Adam Jones as facts of all the major talking points at Goodison Park. Of course, as we know by now, it's a very different podcast than usual, but we are doing our best to bring you insight, opinion, bit of colour and discussion, and hopefully half an hour or so will provide some entertainment in the lockdown. On the agenda today, yesterday was 12 months on from when the Blues thumped Manchester United 4-0 at Goodison under Marco Silva, perhaps the high point of the Marco Silva reign. So we'll be getting the chaps' thoughts on the 12 months that have been since, and did we think we'd be pre-lockdown, of course, in the position we are with the change of manager, etc. And as you will no doubt have seen on our website, we've been giving the players rated the season so far. So I've got a couple on my list for today for the lads to talk about. I'll give the lads the numbers that have been given out and see if that's a fair reflection. But Sam, as you mentioned it to me, yes, I think you can start us off. The weather was almost like it is now, gloriously sunny. Goodison was packed. United were the visitors, and they were absolutely swatted aside 4-0. Is that your high point of the Silva reign? Did it go downhill from there?
It went downhill and fast, I think, didn't it? I think that was really the moment where it just seemed like everything had come together. I think I was office that day, so I was watching it on telly, and, obviously United aren't the United that they used to be, but, you still always expect a tight game, maybe similar to what we had against them at Goodison this season. But then, we absolutely took them apart, and I think no matter what Manchester United team you beat, if you beat them 4-0, it's some occasion, it's some day, and it was a great performance from everyone, and Romelu Lukaku was on the end of a few jeers, and everything kind of felt good, and it felt right. I think if anyone would have even dared suggest then that there was still things to work on, that that we'd obviously go on to lose a Gana Gueye and everything that's happened in maybe the last 6 to 8 months, you would have thought you were mad. But to think about that day and the weather and the feeling around the stadium, to not only Marco Silva being sacked, but to where we are as a country now, it's been some 12 months. But yeah, definitely that point to the Marco Silva reign, definitely the point, I think, that gave so much optimism, especially going into that summer transfer window and signing players that maybe we all hadn't. Don't think anyone had watched lots and lots of Moise Kean. I don't think anyone had watched lots and lots of any of Jean-Philippe Gbamin, but it was performances like that, coupled with the win over Arsenal, the win over Chelsea, even the draw against Liverpool, that made you think maybe they could have done special build under Silva. It wasn't to be, and it's almost kind of strange to look back on that Manchester United game now and to see where we are today.
Adam, was that the point of Marco's reign, and why didn't we capitalise on that?
I think it certainly was the high point of Marco's reign, and I think Sam's right in the fact that it came after that Liverpool game, the win over Chelsea, the win over Arsenal as well. There was a real distinct feeling at Goodison, especially the end of last season, that who could stop us, who could come to Goodison and beat us, and that's really from the position that Silva found himself in say January, maybe start February, to be able to create that from then until the end of the season, that was really, really promising. And maybe the end of the season came at the wrong time for him, because we just built up that momentum. We had win over Burnley, was our last home game last season, wasn't it? So the momentum was so high for us, and I know we managed to continue it a little bit into the start of this season, but the win over Watford, the win over Wolves, they weren't really played with the same sort of vein and intensity that we had in those games, against, well, especially Manchester United last season. And it's so strange. Like, I look back at the highlights of that Manchester United game, and the second goal in particular, it was a Man United corner picking out from the back. Just a guy runs us half up the pitch, gives it to Sigurdsson, and Sigurdsson just pings in a shot from about 25, 30 yards. Like, unfortunately, obviously we had Guy taken out of the equation this season, but let's put another one of our midfielders in that situation. Would we see that goal this season, especially under Silva? It's really strange that how quickly, as Sam said, it went downhill. So I think maybe just the end of the season came at the wrong time for Silva. He seemed to build up that momentum. End of the season just kind of knocked it a little bit. Obviously, we lost Guy, we lost Zuma as well, and we didn't bring in another centre back to kind of replace Zuma, especially for the first couple of months of the season. So it's just a really, really strange time. But yeah, that Manchester United game, it's so strange to look back on it and think, how much optimism there was around the ground. You don't beat Manchester United 4-0 every season. The fact that we have done that was, really good. But yeah, it is a bit of a shame, really, that ended up being the high point of Silva's time.
Prano, both Sam and Adam have mentioned one player in that conversation of that game, and that was somebody who wasn't on the score sheet, but running the midfield, Idris the guy. Look, many problems in the 12 months since that game, of course, and various reasons why things have reached a point where Mark to lose his job. But how big a hole has been left by Guy?
In hindsight, you'd have to say an enormous hole. I mean, I saw the goals on social media today, and very, very pleasantly surprised at the quality of the moves involved. Two of the goals were like major breaks from one end of the pitch to the other, but they were breaks at pace with quality, so with real, so high class passing involved. And it surprised me a little because, it was the kind of football we didn't really see that much of at the start of this season. In hindsight, you could say that Gana Gueye was a huge part of that. I think we underestimated him, I certainly did, accepted the destructive part of the game that he brought to Everton's squad, but probably underestimated the constructive parts of the game that he also had. But what also jumped out at me, so absolutely glaringly from those highlights, was Gylfi Sigurdsson. How influential he was that day. Apart from the goal that Adam's just talked about, his part in the fourth goal for Theo Walcott, where he showed a bit of pace, a bit of, last day, Kevin Sheedy, the kind of role that Sheedy played, in that Bayern Munich goal we see all the time, a little bit reminiscent of that. And we just haven't seen, Sigurdsson have that kind of influence again this season. Is that again, onto the fact that Gueye was taken out of the equation, he had to, play a slightly different role? I'm not so sure. But yeah, certainly in hindsight, losing that one individual did make a huge difference. Zuma, as Adam mentioned, it was also a shame that we lost it equally, so Mason Holgate's sudden emergence sort of offset that a little bit. But yeah, Gueye was a player that wasn't really replaced, and the players that were introduced in the summer didn't really settle all quickly. We never really that kind of a discernible pattern either. There was almost like a suggestion that there was a team growing towards the end of last season. Apart from that win against United, there was a solid draw at Palace and Spurs, the defeat of Burnley, who were a very offside team, but Everton did it really comprehensively that night. And then it's almost like, Silva tried to change the way the team was playing at the start of the season, and it just never really melded, never really, sort of settled very quickly. And you really got the sense that any kind of momentum developing at all this season. I mean, it was the defeat of Villa on the Friday night, which knocked us back very, very quickly. And it just seemed like, we were struggling. We were trying to run before we could walk, and there was just no sign of any pattern at all this season. So yeah, that probably was the high point, unfortunately. So we left Goodison with a spring in our step, thinking, wow, the future looks bright. Unfortunately, it wasn't.
Just staying with Guy, Sam, and it's very easy in hindsight to look back and question these things. But at the time, did you have any concerns over the fee that we'd negotiated £29 million with PSG to sell an influential midfielder?
Yeah, I think it was a difficult one at the time, wasn't it? Because it was quite clear that Gueye wanted to go and, go and play for Paris Saint-Germain and be involved in the Champions League. And he gave us so much kind of loyal service that, I remember saying at the time, it was interesting. He was one of the only Everton players that I can remember for someone my age, where Everton were losing our best player, but they were leaving on kind of good terms. Everyone, not in that kind of small club way, but just in a way of he'd given us so much. The fee for a 29-year-old seemed more than decent kind of thing at the time, and it was an opportunity to play in the Champions League that he wouldn't immediately get Everton. But now obviously in hindsight being 2020, I just don't think we got the scope of how important Gana Gueye was, and kind of how much we'd miss him, and how unique that kind of older player, him and Kante, have almost made their own. So I'd say at the time I was just more kind of thinking that it was something that we had to replace and fast. It was going to be crucial to replace him because, you know, I think there was that much kind of faith, you know, in Marcel. Not that there's not now, but, you know, Marcel and Marco had such a kind of positive first transfer window that, you know, Gbamin just kind of seemed like he'd be able to hit the ground, run and replace him, and Gueye would be happy because he'd got his big move kind of, you know, at a stage of your career when you don't usually get that. So yeah, I think it almost seems strange now looking back that everyone wished him well. Everyone's still happy to doing well at PSG. You know, I know he's having a really good season before it was suspended, but now that you think back, you probably think he to Everton anyway. He was probably double actually got from when you're back at games like that, and you just see how much we kind of at times. There's just been so many games this season where I just think if you put a Gana Gueye in, it could have been so different for not only Everton but Marco Silva as well.
I think we also, you mentioned it there, Sam, that, you know, so Gbamin, that could have been, you know, so the ready-made replacement. He could have been the player that, you know, could arguably have saved Silva's skin. We just don't know. You know, so we only saw him for like fleetingly at Crystal Palace and then one game at Goodison Park before he was ruled out of the equation entirely. Who knows? He could have been a guy that, you know, so replaced Gana Gueye. I know he didn't look the same type of player, you know, so physically, but, you know, so he could have been the player that came in and, you know, so made that transition seamless. Unfortunately, we'll never know.
Adam, there's been a bit of an update about Gbamin actually this week, hasn't there?
Yeah, he's on the road to recovery. He's nearing what would be like outside training. If it was any sort of normal circumstances, he'd be training with a ball. So he's doing some like sports specific training this week, continuing his rehab from surgery. It's hard to think how hard this must be, you know, for not only for the player but for the medical staff as well, to try and talk him through everything that he's doing, just, you know, via like a video chat like we're doing now. So it must be a really strange situation for him, but, you know, it's really good to see him, you know, on the road to recovery. And, you know, like I think I've said on the podcast a few times before, like maybe even if this season does come back, I'd maybe just say to him, look, sit out this season, start a fresh season, kick on. You know, hopefully can be that replacement for Gueye, because Gueye was just such a unique player in that midfield three. He was such an engine. Like he would be absolutely everywhere on pitch, and just, you know, come back but going forward for us as well. And, you know, with Gbamin being out, you know, I know we did sign the likes of Delph and San Gomez permanently, but we didn't have that sort of engine room in the mid three anymore. So ultimately, Gilfie's position, you know, as Preno said, just did need to change this season. You know, maybe that did affect his form, and maybe that's what led us down the path that we find now. But, you know, I think Gbamin can find his way to fix, and, you know, hopefully he can be that replacement for Gueye that we so desperately need.
I think the thing with
go on, Sam. Go on, mate.
So I think the thing with Gbamin yesterday as well, in the article that Adam wrote that I found quite interesting, is that I think sometimes we forget these players are, at the end of the day, just like us, aren't they? Just humans. And it was mentioned yesterday that, you know, he's got a young kid on the way and a baby on the way, and you kind of think, don't you, like a young man in his early 20s coming to England for the first time might not have had a great grasp on the language. Now he's having a baby in the middle of the coronavirus crisis. You know, what a kind of period in Gbamin's life it's been, and we're all kind of sitting here just thinking, well, he's got to be the replacement for Idrissa Gana Gueye. It's tough, but I genuinely think he could be the fit. I know a lot of fans hate that, oh, he'll be like a new signing phrase, but he's one of the only ones I can remember that he literally will be, won't he? You know, he's played one game. So from start, and he's going to come back and hopefully be that whole new player. But at the same time, as Adam's saying, it's just so interesting to see how the club must be managing them. Not only kind of, I know the interview yesterday, you know, the club are kind of watching him do his movements and giving him kind of routines and stuff. But it was also interesting when he said, you know, when you get to know Gene, he also opens up a lot as well. So it seems like he's kind of happy to talk his own feelings and his own emotions, which must be just as important at this point as any of the kind of physical work he's doing. And I really think that, and really hope as well, that when, you know, we can go back to physical training, whether that's how they do in Germany at the moment, when lads go back maybe in small groups and apart, that a couple of the older, more senior players can take Gbamin under the wing, because it's a period of transition for him on and off the pitch. But as I'm saying, if he hits that running next season and he is like that new sign, he is like that Gana Gueye replacement, then what a headache that would lift for Brands and Ancelotti, because we've got to sign a central midfielder anyway. I think it's going to be probably one of the main priorities, but it would help if he also, because he was showing promising signs, wasn't he? And I think he grew into that Palace game towards the end, and then for all accounts had a decent game against Watford. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of positions that need in the summer, I think, and Gbamin kind of hitting the ground running would therefore obviate one of them problems.
Preno, Sam makes a really good point about, we can't forget the psychological element of Gbamin's recovery. Just pick on Adam's point there. He thinks that he should just focus on the start of next season, whenever that could be, and aiming for that. But psychologically, is it not vital for Gbamin to be targeting one remaining 9 games this season, if and when they happen?
I think it all depends on timing, really, doesn't it? You've just got to, sort of be guided by the sports scientists and by, sort of the recovery rate to the injury. And he's fully fit, and so when he's 100% physically ready, by all means, so pitch him into a match and see how he responds. But yeah, I'd probably overlooked as well, so the extent, psychological impact. He won't have been in the dressing room with those players. He's been in on 2 occasions. The rest of the time, he's been sat, so in the little rooms at Finch Farm that they use for players who are injured, so working on his fitness of his own. He's missed out on all that, so assimilation, so with the squad, all the joking, all, so the messing about, so the stuff that the players really enjoy. That'll be so tough for the player at the moment, not being able to mix with each other. And where I live here, you see them every now and then, like sort of wandering around the streets, and so they do look like little boys lost. So Leighton Baines has been doing this like mad, sort of fitness, where you can actually pit yourself against other sports people around the country, and apparently he's doing magnificently well. So he's like about so 8th or 9th in the entire country. But you see other players, so basically wandering around on their own, and it's quite unusual. So you don't normally see players often around here because they live behind these bloody gated mansions and walls and things, and so you very rarely clap eyes on them. Exactly, yeah. But no, I think a lot of it, they're not going to get tested for selfies while they're out these days. So they're more happy to sort of poke their head, sort of over the parapet. But equally, so they're at a loose end, so they can't mix with people, they can't mix with their teammates. And so that is going to have an effect, psychologically. Certainly for a player like Gbamin, who's like not being able to enjoy that for the whole time he's been in England. And yeah, you forget his youth as well, so he's a very, very young man who's like Sam's just said, so about to bring up a young family as well. It must be a very, very difficult period, so to adapt to psychologically. And, fair play to him for, sort of getting through it as well as he has done so far. But I bet he can't wait just to be in a dressing room mixing with players. So yeah, as soon as he's and as soon as he's available, I think he needs to be, so part of that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you make a good point there, Brennan, because players, like us all, but players particularly are very much creatures of habit, aren't they? Structured days, and although they will be training to tables and stuff, there inevitably is more downtime and less of what they would, usually do with the downtime. Hence why you see maybe some of them, as you say, walking around looking lost.
Well, that's it as well. I mean, what helps foster a successful team is the bonding and the team spirit and all the stuff that sort of goes together with that. I've been reading a couple of pieces recently about successful pre-season tours that Everton have been on, and how that helped breed successful seasons, because something indefinable happens like sort of groups of players when they mix together, and groups of men so aren't necessarily all going to get on together. You're going to have different personalities, sort of that group, but being together so in a certain situation allows you to develop relationships and to develop this like sort of team spirit, which is so important. You look at the teams that are successful, so in this country, Manchester City, Liverpool, all very, very, sort of disparate, so individuals within those groups. Yet the team spirit is incredible. Everyone talks about the quality Man City have got, but you look at how hard they work during matches. They work incredibly well, so with each other. And that is built, so on the training ground. And, so Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp are very, very clever at that, at helping to foster that team spirit. And you get the impression Carlo Ancelotti is very, very good at that as well. I mean, there was a feature that we put on the site yesterday, John Terry, talking about, so how Ancelotti revealed to the Chelsea players he'd just been sacked at Goodison Park, 2011 was it? And then they were on the team bus on the way back, and so they all said, right, come on, we're taking you out. We're all going out in London. We're going to have a great night out. And they did. And Terry actually said if there was any of his former managers he wanted to go for, so an evening out with, he would choose Ancelotti. So you get the impression Ancelotti would be very good at helping to develop and foster that team spirit when he's given the opportunity to do so. It was frustrating as hell for him as well, being able to, sit at home and have his, sort of hour-long walk along Hull Road front, so what he'd like to do, so with the players and not being able to do so. It's an immensely frustrating period for everybody. And we all understand, so why these restrictions are in place. And we all understand, so why it's so important that people do adhere to these government guidelines. But gosh, it must be very frustrating for them as much as it is for the rest of us.
Indeed. Gbamin, of course, as Sam says, will feel like a new signing in that respect when he returns to the team. Speaking of potential new signings, Adam, it's been no secret for a few months now, and we've reported on it several times, that the club are interested in Lille defender Gabriel, 22, Brazilian. Do we really know much about him, though? There seems to be anybody who asks seems to just sort of go, yeah, it looks all right to me.
Well, I suppose if you're not somebody who watches French football a lot, then perhaps you're not going to know all that much about them. I mean, I've watched them in the Champions League a few times this season. I think he played all of Lille's Champions League games that they had this season. We looked pretty solid in those games, and even though obviously Lille went off to the group stages, but I'm not an avid watcher of Ligue 1 football, so I can't say that I've seen him a lot of times. But I think you've just got to trust in what Ancelotti and Brands are identifying. He ticks all the boxes on paper, doesn't he? He's the right age range. He looks like he's got the right attributes. I think if we had like a back four, like a four centre back options of him, Holgate, Mina, and Michael Keane, and we're suddenly looking really, really strong in that position.
Do we think? Sorry to interrupt you, Adam. Do we think that when any club, and in particular our club, are linked with a Brazilian or even a South American centre half, it immediately causes some cause for nervousness? Do you think that actually the perception of Brazilian defenders, stereotypically and historically, is actually now needs to be changed because the game's moved on and Brazil aren't, all Brazilian defenders aren't as mavericks as David Luiz. What do we think?
Yeah, I do agree. I think the game has moved on in a way because, I think what springs out to me in this scenario is like whenever you see Mason Holgate talk about his form at Everton and how he's developed under Ancelotti, he always kind of brings up how well he brings the ball out from the back and how much influence Ancelotti puts on players being able to bring the ball out from the back. And for all of in the past, your David Luiz, etc., have been maybe defensively culpable. They've been fantastic at bringing the ball out from the back. So maybe Brazil were just a little bit ahead of the curve, essentially, in developing these type of defenders who are just as good with the ball at their feet as they are stopping other players with the ball at their feet. And, there's no suggestion that Gabriel would be this type of defender who would have a mistake. It really depends on the type of player rather than the nationality, whether somebody's going to have a mistake in them or not. But, yeah, fingers crossed he'll be as capable defensively as he will be going forward.
Sam, in anything you've picked up or read about Gabriel, can you glean anything other than the raw stats that we've all seen?
No, not too much. I mean, I have had a couple of YouTube look-sees at him, but I've been burnt before watching Oumar Niasse the night we signed him. Tell me dad that we'd signed a 30-goal a season. So, Oumar, to be fair, did look boss on YouTube. Like, he had it all. He had pace, power, could finish from anywhere. But
I think many people listening, and I certainly did like you watched the Niasse YouTube compilation, and I think maybe you kind of heart rules your head at the time because you're just thinking, oh, pace. Look at the goals. Yeah, it could be an absolute bargain. But if you watch it retrospectively, you can kind of see he doesn't know what's going to happen with the ball. Yeah. The defenders don't know what's going to happen.
And it was Russia. Aidan McGeady looked good in Russia. I mean,
it's like we were saying, there's a few, me and Adam were saying the other day, if you watch that Sunderland Till I Die series too, Brian Oviedo looks like the best left-back in the world. Just assists, crosses, like, he's just brilliant. But obviously then you remember he's playing for Sunderland in League One.
League One, yeah.
You know, Gabriel, I mean, Everton, you look back the last time we signed well, not the last time we got Mina now, but you know, Funes Mori, we got burned with him as well. But I'm not sure. I think looking from the brief things I've seen about him and read about him, you know, he's obviously highly rated. He looks like, you know, he's well built, and he doesn't look like your kind of David Luiz style defender either. So, you know, it does seem like Everton are keen on him. You know, you get these kind of rumours, don't you, which feel different. It does feel like there's real, genuine interest. And I think it's a position that just needs sorting out, isn't it? We've had too much, really, of you know, we've signed Keane and hasn't quite hit the levels of consistency or confidence we maybe needed. I mean, I personally like Mina, but, you know, I think he'd been left out for the last couple of games under Carlo Ancelotti. So we just need that. You know, it's horrible to say it, but you just look at how much, obviously, whole different ball game in terms of the money they paid, but Liverpool signed Virgil van Dijk, and you just look at the influence he's had on their, not just defence, but the whole team and how they operate. You know what I mean? And just, you need these days that you need at least a spine, I think, to be competing in the top six of the Premier League, and that's what we almost need to sign this summer. So, you know, I think Gabriel, if Ancelotti's happy and Brands is happy, then I think Evertonians will be happy as well. And it would be nice to kind of go against the grain of how Everton usually operate and get a deal done nice and early, you know, and not be messing around later on, you know, and at least know that we kind of had him there ready to start the new season. But it's Everton, and you don't know what's going to happen, do you?
Preno, you know, look, we're not able to offer any particularly great insight on Gabriel as a player because we've not really seen him a great deal. But certainly one of the key and very raw attributes is he's left-footed, and there aren't many left-footers in this squad.
No, that's a good point. You know, what you tend to do when you see, you know, sort of players linked with, you know, your club like that is look who else is chasing him, which other scouts have targeted him. And, you know, if the reports we're reading are correct, Chelsea, Arsenal and Napoli were all very, very interested in signing this player. So that suggests that he does have, you know, so a certain level amongst, you know, so European football. Van Dijk obviously is the absolute elite level benchmark, and you know that's why you got to pay 75 million quid to get players like that. Everton have got a business model now where they want to spend, you know, around the 20-25 million mark on younger players. I think he's 22, is he 21, yeah. 22, Gabriel, who will then, you know, sort of develop and be basically, you know, sort of worth more to you, you know, so as his career progresses. So he fits that, you know, so that model very, very well. I think he played every minute of Lille's Champions League campaign and played very, very well. So he ticks, you know, so lots and lots of boxes. Everton appear to have done their due diligence, and you know, so if they can get a deal over the line, it looks like it'll be a very, very useful acquisition to have. What you want with your centre backs, or what I want is you want stability and solidity and consistency, and that's largely what we haven't had in the central defenders, you know, so that we've had at the club. Yerry Mina has looked great on occasion, but has had these dips. Michael Keane has been a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest, you know, so lots of ups and downs. Mason Holgate's arguably has been the most consistent of the lot over the last 6 months or so. But, you know, he's also, you know, so looked decent bringing the ball forward. And you would hope that, you know, so Gabriel will do that. But you just want consistency. You want a player that can come in and basically produce it week in and week out. And you're never going to know whether he's capable of doing that until he comes into the Premier League, which is a very, very different league to leagues throughout Europe, and see how he settles in. But, you know, so he does tick an awful lot of boxes. The club seems to have, you know, sort of scouted him very, very effectively. And, you know, fingers crossed, yeah, you know, it can be a player that we can get over the line. And as, you know, the guys mentioned, get done sooner rather than later. We say sooner, we have no idea whatsoever when the season's going to either restart or next season's going to start. But yeah, the sooner he's on board, the sooner he can be training on his own down Fulby Beach.
Okay, final part of today's pod, as we promised. I've only probably got time to do one of these. As you will have seen, we've been doing season so far ratings for each of the Everton squad, and that's ongoing. But of course, we started with Jordan Pickford. and after a couple of the guys gave him a rating, his rating for the season so far is coming in at 6.5. Adam, is 6.5 a fair reflection of Jordan Pickford's season?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think let's get this out the way. He's not had a fantastic season. I think everybody knows that he's made mistakes across the course of the season. But in my personal opinion, I think that those mistakes are being highlighted a little bit too much. I think on a national scale, they're obviously going to be highlighted so much because he's England's number one. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that role, especially he's quite a young goalkeeper in that role as well. So maybe that adds a little bit more pressure as well. But I think in terms of Everton as well, I think maybe his mistakes have been I think they've just been over-egged a little bit because, a goalkeeper is just like every other position on the pitch. You can have periods of good form and bad form, but it seems that whenever Pickford has a period of bad form, people instantly start to question his attitude or other parts of his game, and I just don't understand that. He's just had some periods of bad form. I think maybe the one to look at is the Manchester United game just before the break. He made perhaps what could be perceived to be a little bit of a mistake in letting in Bruno Fernandes's goal, but then in the second half he produces an absolute worldie of a save, which ends up saving us a point. So I think with the mistakes that he's had, he's not had a fantastic season by any stretch, but I don't think he's had as bad a season as people are making out. And I think with the age that he is as well, I think he's just got so much room to improve, and fingers crossed he still will achieve that at Everton.
Sam, part of the goalkeepers union, do you think 6.5 is unfair?
Don't be giving him 10 now.
No, as Adam says, I think you've got to probably admit it, and I know Jordan's a confident lad, but we'll probably say the same. I think just a little bit like what happened last season. I thought Pickford was very good at the start of the season and the end of the season. There was just a period in the middle where he seemingly lost his way a little bit, and seemed to be the case again this season. And he's just made too many mistakes that as the way it is of a goalkeeper, he can miss a chance from 10 yards out, but if the keeper lets one through his legs, it's the keeper that gets the rollicking at the end of the game and gets all the kind of the bad press. So there's just been too many to kind of pick out from Pickford. But I am still always kind of surprised by the debate about him. Seemingly a polarizing figure at the moment, and I've still got. I think Preno's the same, but got a lot of faith in Pickford. I think he'll be the England and Everton goalkeeper for a long time to come, providing he cuts out those mistakes. But he's a young lad, and I just generally think it's consistency that he's after, and hopefully this time next season, because as we're talking about a centre back, you need your goalkeeper to be performing at the top of his game if you want to get in the top six at the moment. So we're going to need Pickford to be at least a 7 or an 8 next season if we want to challenge, and if he is to keep the kind of the pressure off his back both at club and country.
Preno, a word on Pickford. Are you pro Pickford?
Oh, very much so. But equally, I agree. I think that 6.5 is probably a fair, mark. Whenever I talk about his performances, I always try to caveat it with his age, how he's likely to improve, so as his career progresses, and what he needs to do temperament-wise and concentration-wise, which he is starting to do better. And those people that are arguing that, he should lose his England place, he's not made a mistake whilst he's been the England goalkeeper. He's made a couple, certainly, during his Everton career. But equally, so's Dean Henderson. He mentions that when he let through his legs that gave Jorginho Wijnaldum, a winner, so a few months back. And Pope's made mistakes this season. It's all very easy to, man in possession and pick holes in his performances. He's not played as well as he had done the previous, so a couple of seasons. He has made, too many mistakes, for most people's likings, but they're not absolute, sort of howlers. And people look to be, sort of trying to focus too hard. What was the game where he was like, the Newcastle match where he was, someone freeze framed that image of him stood behind the goal line, so when the ball actually, so he tries to catch it, so on fumbles. But I was trying to indicate that was an error. He just made 2 or 3 absolutely incredible instinctive stops prior to that. And as a result, that's why he found himself in the back of that goal. But it's almost like the anti-Pickford brigade. Oh, no, look, freeze frame that's proof, therefore, that, so he's having a bad run of form at the moment. Equally, you can, find instances where he's made great saves and use them to support his case. 6.5's about right, so he could have done far, far better this season, but equally, he's not as bad as people are making out.
Do you think stylistically people have got an issue, or the perception of the way he is as a goalkeeper, because he perhaps isn't traditionally orthodox in his goalkeeping style? He's not, he's not very straightforward as a goalkeeper, is he?
No, I mean, I think that the issue that people have, and I have an issue with it as well, is the way he gets involved in matches all the time. Temperament-wise, goalkeepers need to be dispassionate. I know sometimes you see, Peter Schmeichel was an absolute ranter and, and a rager, so during games. But normally after the event, people see Pickford making a save and then, sort of bouncing around his, sort of line, celebrating wildly. And saying, you don't want to see that. You want to see you have a little bit more of a dispassionate approach, to your game. And, the very best goalkeepers we've had at Everton have been like that. Nigel Martin was just like that. Obviously, so Neville was like that. Tim Howard, to a certain degree, was like that as well. You've got to be cool and calculating. But again, earlier, he's very, very young still. He's only played, 2, 3 full seasons of Premier League football. He's adding to his game all the time. And I genuinely believe that will come. It's something he needs to learn. And I think, we have seen it better this season occasions, so where he has been a little bit more switched off. But, he's adding to his game all the time. He's adding to his, his skill set. And that's something that he needs to add, and hopefully he will.
Excellent, chaps. We'll end it there. Thank you very much for your company. And thank you guys for listening. Remember, if you've got questions or topics you want us to get our teeth stuck into, please get in touch with us. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, on email. Friday, we're doing the 90s special. Preno and Gav Buckland will be joining me on the podcast as we look at, similar to what we did with the 80s, the building of the side that ultimately won the Cup in 95 and then what followed afterwards for the remainder of the decade. But again, as I say, any suggestions, any questions you've got for us, please get them across and we will endeavour to do our best and answer them. Chaps, thank you very much for being involved and thank you very much for listening. This has been the Royal Blue Podcast.